What's going on, everybody? A good morning and a happy Friday to you all. TGIF DK Show up and at it from the TDS Sports Talk Studios this morning. A big thanks for tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in. If it's online at sportstalk1051.com, download the app, take it on the go. Got your smart devices, smart speakers, video streams also up and rolling on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. I missed one over the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. That's 5 right there. So, but a happy Friday, everybody. What do we got on a good old game plan for us here this morning? He's in. Sterling Sharpe. Sterling Sharpe elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame last night. The smallest class since 2005, too. So Sharpe was in. Holmgren did not get in last night. But I think a lot of us are saying finally for Sharpe. I will admit that, a few years ago, I didn't think he was going to get in. I didn't think he had a chance, but they have changed their mindsets over the last few years about getting players in with maybe shorter careers and such. So big thumbs up from me, and I think a big thumbs up from a lot of Packers peeps out there to get him in. Jared Allen, former Chief and Viking player, longtime Vikings player who wreaked havoc against the Packers, also getting in. Antonio Gates getting in. Eric Allen getting in too. So 4 members in the new 2025 Pro Football Hall of Fame class. So, and had other awards last night. Josh Allen edging out Lamar Jackson for the MVP. Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings and being named Coach of the Year. Saquon Barkley being named Offensive Player of the Year. Patrick Surtain, Defensive Player of the Year. So, and no surprise, Jane Daniels, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jared Verse from the Rams, Defensive Rookie of the Year. But that means now that the awards are in and the Hall of Fame classes are announced, we are on to the Super Bowl, to the big game coming up this weekend. What's your picks? We'll make it easy. Okay. You can text me either the team name that you're rolling with. We'll go, or you could just text me a number. Number 1 we'll designate for the Chiefs, and a number 2 we will designate for the Eagles. I want to see what our listeners, what the 715, where the majority is going. Got to make one. I know there's a lot of us. I am the same way with all of you. It's hard, to pick, are you going to pick with your heart? Or are you going to pick with your head? Are you going to pick with who you're rooting for? Or are you going to pick with what your mind tells you? So 1 for the Chiefs, 2 for the Eagles, or just type out the team name. Trying to make it a little easy for you. So you can either text it or comment on the video streams. And then at the end of the program here this morning, we'll tabulate the votes and see where the 715 is rolling with. So get those on in. We'll talk a little bit about the big game. Anybody got any cool big game plans coming up on Sunday? Anybody got any traditions when it comes to maybe some big game parties or anything like that? Do you do something? Is it a little, same thing every year? Get together with some friends, family, same meal or whatever. But share it with the rest of the class, or what maybe you got something extra special planned for. I don't know, but let me know. Okay, hit me up. Share it with us. I'm curious. So we'll talk some football throughout this morning, as it's kind of our last football Friday for a little bit there. But we'll hit that up. Also, Bucks did make another trade yesterday before the deadline, acquiring Kevin Porter Jr. from the Clippers in exchange for Marjon Beauchamp. So Kevin Porter Jr., I believe, actually was, so in kind of a weird twist of fate, was originally drafted by the Bucks in 2019, but was one of those draft day trades and such. So later traded to the Cavs, and then just kind of been with the Cavs for a couple years, and he was with Houston for a hot minute, and then G League, and then the Clippers. But now he's with the Bucks over there. So this is the team. This is the team for the Bucks to finish off the rest of the season. Not the biggest amount of moves. I did see it was on one of the many outlets out there had NBA trade deadline recap, kind of a poll question, and I think it was pretty much like what was the biggest surprise. And you had the Luka and Anthony Davis trade obviously on there, and Jimmy Butler. But how they phrased the Bucks one was, were you surprised that maybe they didn't make as big of a move or more moves to help out their team? So how would you assess what the Bucks did at the trade deadline? You give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, maybe in the middle, meh sort of thing? How do you think they did an okay job? How would you grade how the Bucks did by this trade deadline? So let me know. Hit me up. Send me a text, 715-830-1912. Or hit me up on the socials too, whatever's easier over there. So we'll talk some hoops. And to talk about the Bucks are actually back in action tonight. It's going up against the Atlanta Hawks. So we'll hit that game up. Speaking of some hoops too, I know we got some college basketball in action. Wisconsin taking on Iowa tomorrow, high noon in Iowa. And remember, this is I think a very important game for Wisconsin to get this W. To get this W, because you look at the upcoming schedule for the Badger men's basketball team, and it is going to be tough. It is going to be a very, very tough schedule coming up here. You've got Purdue at Purdue. Got a whole week to prepare for that one. But then you got Illinois coming to Wisconsin, and Illinois kind of had Wisconsin's number the last couple of years. Oregon comes over. Now, I know Oregon's not ranked anymore. They just dropped out of the top 25 rankings. But that could be a tough test. And then Washington, and then you travel to Michigan State. So get this win against the Hawkeyes tomorrow night. And then you got the whole week to prepare for a big-time game against Purdue. That should be a fantastic one coming up next week. You got Marquette's also in action, too, going up against Creighton, and that will be for second place in the Big East. Marquette still trying to keep pace here with St. John's. St. John's beating them a little bit earlier. And remember, Marquette finishes off the season, their last two games against UConn and St. John's. So got some good college basketball action. And for a little bit more of a local flair, don't forget the Blue Gold men's basketball team is going to be taking on lacrosse for a shot to tie for second place in the WIAC standings. The Blue Golds pick up the win against ranked lacrosse at the Sonntag. Blue Golds will be tied for second place in the WIAC. And then after that, their big game against Platteville on Wednesday, Blue Golds win their next two games. They'll be tied for first place in the WIAC standings. That's awesome. So got some good college basketball action coming at you tomorrow. We're going to talk some baseball here as we get set or we get closer and closer to spring training and such. We know our first spring training game is going to be 2 weeks from tomorrow. So we'll talk a little Brewers baseball with Brandon coming up. Brandon Berg will be joining us. Speaking of Brandon, we'll do some local sports roundup. Hit up on the latest in the 715 and such. I know prep-wise, starting to maybe kind of look towards the end of the regular season and getting ready for some conference stuff. So, but we'll talk to Brandon coming up in the next hour or so. Before Brandon, will do some inside the training room with Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. And around 8 o'clock, we'll make our cream of the crop picks. So want you all to play along. Who's your cream of the crop? Okay, who's your cream of the crop? Send those on over as well. So let's get at it. And what else do you want to talk about? Anything else that's on your mind that you want to hit up? Let me know. send it on over, video, text, social medias, whatever the case may be. So send those on over. Let's get things going here this morning. Got the lead off. We'll have a little football talk. We'll throw in some hoops talk. Let me know, did the Bucks do enough by the trade deadline? Sending Middleton for Kuzma. They did, Patrick Baldwin Jr., so they did get him in return, but they already shipped him off to San Antonio and such. Still trying to clear some money and some space. And I got to imagine maybe the Bucks are going to be a little active in the buyout market. So don't know if they're quite done yet. But how do you assess what they did? And maybe you factor in, well, they didn't have a whole lot of resources to work with. I think maybe the one surprise I had was Pat Connaughton not getting moved. It sure seemed like that maybe he was the guy they were really trying to move, but he didn't. So, all right, let's get things going here. Join in on the convo. It's a Friday. It's a TGIF. We'll take our first break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes to get things going. Sounds like we've got a snowstorm coming, and I know we don't have school on the weekends and such, but it's a good reminder, excuse me, to always pay attention to our website, sportstalk1051.com, for the WEAU 13 news. First alert school closings brought to you by Hovland's and ServiceMaster. Check it out over there, right on the homepage on the left-hand side if you're pulling it up on your desktop or your computer. Speaking of this weekend too, don't forget, for all you ice fishermen, got the Jigs Up. Jigs Up tournament's back this year. Remember last year they had to cancel it because, well, warm weather and such. But yeah, snowstorm potentially might be a good time to just sit in the shanty on the ice and, well, try to win some awesome prizes and do a little fishing. So got the 12th annual Jigs Up coming at you tomorrow. So I can imagine the snow too, probably help out a little bit with the Berkey binder coming up here. Couple weeks, right? Couple weeks coming up here, less than a couple weeks. So gotta imagine that's assuming they're getting snow up there too. So got a lot of stuff coming up on the docket here, no question about it. So continue to send me your picks, your Super Bowl picks. We want to see where our 715 area is going to be leaning towards, or maybe you're outside the 715 too. That's perfectly fine. Our little nation, or whatever you want to call it. You can text me your picks, who you think is going to win the Super Bowl. You can text me the name, or just make it simple. If you just want to do it one digit, we'll designate the number 1 for Chiefs and number 2 for the Eagles. So right now, it's honestly 50-50. So send those on over. And then if you got any plans for, do you do a tradition when it comes to Super Bowl Sunday? Do you do it regardless if your team's in it or not? Do you always do a little something? Do you have a little party, a little get together, or anything like that? Anything planned that you want to share with the rest of the group? I'm potentially looking for, maybe some new ideas and such, but yeah, send them on over. So a few of you already chiming in about Sterling Sharpe. You're excited and pumped for Sterling Sharpe. For me, for Sharpe, obviously I was a kid when he was playing, but he is probably my first, how do I want to say this? Like the first really good football player, really good athlete that I kind of knew about as a kid, if that makes sense. Like when you're a kid and you start to follow along with sports and you're like, oh, I know who that player is. Like Sharpe was one of the first ones. I don't know if I'd say he was the first, but he was definitely one of the first ones. I mean, I still have a picture and I posted it up on Facebook and Twitter. I remember back in the day, and they still do it, but it's different now. But you'd get the plastic helmets, the pads. I don't even think they do the pads. They don't, because I know Hudson didn't get pads. But back in the day, you could get a plastic helmet, some shoulder pads, football pants, and a jersey all in a box. And mine, it didn't have the name on the back, but it was 84. It was a white one in 84. I think it was like the name was Hutch. It was 84. And I mean, it was Sharpe. But I remember as a kid, I always wanted a jersey with a name on the back. That was like my thing. Like I just wanted one. I wanted one with the name on my back. And I remember taking that shirt and cutting out a piece of paper, and in my crappy, really bad handwriting, as gosh, I don't know, second grade, first grade, whatever it was, and writing Sharpe on there in green marker, and then taking glue, Elmer's glue, and gluing it on the back of that jersey above the 84 just because I wanted the name on the back. I remember doing it. I wish I still had that shirt. I wish I still had that. But Sharpe was definitely one of the, easily one of my very first players, like, that you knew about. Like, you knew they were good. You know what I mean? Like White is up there for me too, because I was trying to think back to when I was um, a little kid, and trying to think about those players that really got me into sports. Like who is a player, and this is where I want to kind of throw it back to all of you and give me a player, but who is like a player that when you think back to when you were a youngster, when you were a kid growing up, and that was a player that maybe sucked you in and got you to really like sports. Like we know the teams in that, right? But was there a player? Maybe you always pretended to be at recess or in the backyard, playing with your friends or family or whatever, like, oh, I'm gonna be this guy. Like Sharp was up there for me, and I was trying to think, I had Reggie White was up there for me because, when I was in Boy Scouts, I had the Pinewood Derby. I had a Packer car, and then you get stickers to put like the number on there, and mine was 92 for White. So Reggie White was up there. I remember my first player tee was from Kmart. I don't know why I remember this stuff, but I do. My first player tee was a Reggie White one. And then finally, my first jersey was a Shaq Orlando Magic one. And I still have that jersey. Still have that jersey. Not even close to fitting me, but that one's hanging up on the wall. My very first actual jersey. That one's hanging up on the wall in the man cave. But I don't know why. I was like, and I think that's with Sharp getting into the Hall, it kind of got me going down memory lane a little bit and thinking about some of the players, whether it was baseball or football or basketball, that were like the very first ones that I can remember vividly watching and just kind of like knowing, okay, that's a good player or that's the best player of my favorite team. And Sharp is definitely up there. I'd throw White in there, the Favre, O'Neal for my basketball. I mean, baseball was like Griffey and Frank Thomas. I was a big Hurt fan, Frank Thomas as a kid. No idea why. I don't know why. I don't know why I gravitated towards Frank Thomas and the White Sox, but I had a White Sox hat as a kid. So I'm not quite sure why I did. I mean, again, it probably was just because he was the big hurt and he was all over the place as a kid growing up. And, Brewers weren't that good and they didn't really have any good players when I was a kid and such. But Packers now have 29 primary Hall of Famers. We use the word primary because they've got other players who, spent a hot minute in Green Bay. But for all accounting purposes, 29 primary players now in the Hall of Fame, 3 short of the Bears who have 32. Packers could have had 30 last night if they would have put Mike Holmgren in. And the thing is like Mike Holmgren was the only finalist as a coach. And we talked about it all week. The voting process is harder now. I mean, they've got harder. Basically, you got to get 80% of the votes and such. And Holmgren didn't get that, obviously. And it's, he was the only coach in that category, but it's combined with the seniors and the contributors. And I would not count on Holmgren getting in next year because some guy named Bill Belichick is going to be eligible. So if Bill's eligible, Bill's getting in. So that pushes Holmgren down a little bit, along with Shanahan, along with Coughlin. So that's the bummer. Yeah, obviously we're a little bit more probably personal with it and a little bit of a homer part of it. But, I mean, you look at it and it's like we might have to, at bare minimum, wait a couple more years for Holmgren to potentially get in. I still feel like Mike Holmgren should get in. He doesn't have as many titles as Mike Shanahan or Tom Coughlin, but I think you have to look at the other things that he has done to affect the game, and that's mold these other coaches. I mean, to mold a guy like Andy Reid, to mold these players like a Favre and all. There's more to it, in my opinion. There's more to that. So, but we know Super Bowl titles are the number one thing. That's why I believe Marty Schottenheimer's not in it, or Dan Reeves is not in it. They got a bunch of wins, but they're not in it because they don't have titles as head coaches. But you look at, obviously the big one last night too was Eli did not get in. Eli Manning did not get in. And with the tighter rules, I don't think he gets in next year either. You got some first time eligible players next year that I don't think Eli is even going to get in next year, because you got Drew Brees who's eligible. You've got Larry Fitzgerald who's eligible. I think those are two locks for first-time eligible Hall of Famers player-wise. Easily two locks. And then you're going to have the debate. You got Phillip Rivers. He's eligible. Jason Witten's eligible. I don't think he's going to get in first time. Frank Gore, I think, is going to get in. I don't know if it'll be first time. You got Greg Olson that's listed in there too. So, I mean, you've got some really, really good players coming in. And I don't think it's going to be, I don't think Eli's going to get in next year either. But for me, for that 2026 class, I think the locks are easily Larry Fitzgerald and Drew Brees. Frank Gore, I think, is going to get in. Longevity, numbers are up there. I just don't know if it'll be the first one. But good to see Sharpe in it. The video's out. You kind of, they do it a little bit differently. They surprise him with, like a teammate or somebody like that surprised him. And of course, you kind of want, the video wasn't released yet right away yesterday. It was after the fact. But you kind of figured it was going to be his brother, and it was Shannon Sharpe that surprised him and told him that he was going to be in the Hall of Fame. And because Eli doesn't get in, Shannon and Sterling are now right now the only brothers in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's got to be so cool. That's got to be so dang cool. Like, I'm an only child, but that's got to be so cool to know both you and your brother are going to be immortalized in the same Hall of Fame for the rest of time. I mean, that has got to be so dang cool. I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, one, it's cool to just get in there and to be immortalized, to have your name there forever, for generations to come to see that. And now it's you and your brother in that same hall where the bus talk for forever. Gosh, that's so cool. And Sharpe, you look at it, and I mean, we've talked about his numbers before and such, but you look at it, I think what the biggest thing that stands out to me, you can look at the amount of catches. He had 108 first time, and that's ever since been just demolished, that record and such. But you look at what he did, and I think you factor in, okay, he didn't start off with Favre. You can make the argument he didn't really even have prime Favre when he did have him out there, and yet he was still putting up these numbers when teams were coming in and saying, okay, Sterling Sharpe is the only threat they've got on offense. Let's try to slow him down. Let's try to stop him. And he still went out there and did his thing. And in an era where he was putting up numbers that rivaled or even bested the likes of a Jerry Rice. I mean, the other receivers that were in that era that are in the Hall of Fame, and Sharpe was better than some of those guys. A lot of those guys. And you factor in the team that Sharpe played on compared to some of the other Hall of Famers. I mean, and this is not to take away anything from Rice, but Rice being with the 49ers, better quarterback play, better team overall. Irvin, better team overall. Tim Brown with the Raiders. Andre Reed had Jim Kelly and such. And for Sterling Sharpe to put up those numbers that he did is absolutely nuts, and it's crazy. And the thing that just stinks for him, obviously, is the career short, and he fell short of getting a Super Bowl a couple years too short because of that neck injury. But you look at his 7-year career, and the man never missed a game. He never missed a game in his 7 years. 112 games played, 112 games started. And his career ends because of a neck injury, even though he never missed a single game. That, for a wide receiver too, is pretty dang remarkable. 3-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler when the Pro Bowl actually meant something. Dude got MVP votes in 92 and 93. Offensive Player of the Year votes in those same years. He was an electric, dynamic wide receiver on a not great team, and he was still able to get his. He was still able to put up those numbers. Whether it was a deep threat, I mean, he could go across the middle in that, but man, I can still remember watching a lot of his clips and highlights as a youngster growing up. And it's going to be so flippin' cool. It's going to be so cool to see the next time when it does happen. I don't know when they're going to do it and such, but to see Sterling Sharpe's name on that Lambeau Field facade, when he gets his Hall of Fame ring at a game this year, and they unveil his name next to the likes of all these other Hall of Famers up there, the Leroy Butlers, the Favres, the Whites, the Woodsons, the Stars, the Nitschkes, the Hudsons, and then now it's going to be Sterling Sharpe's. Like that to me, I think is going to okay, that's cool, because now I'm going to go back down memory lane in that. So that's cool. That's so dang cool. Good for Sterling too. I think, again, I didn't think it was going to happen how many years ago? Whenever we had that discussion, like, who's the next Packer to get in? It was like not that long ago. It was like, it's got to be Jerry. Jerry Kramer needs to get in. He deserves to get in. And then when Jerry finally got in, it was like, it's got to be Leroy. Butler's got to be the guy. And I think we all thought Sterling, if he would have just played longer, if he would have been able to play longer, he would be in. And it was just that mindset that was kind of out there too for a lot of players. If you had shorter careers outside of Gale Sayers, you probably weren't going to get in the Hall of Fame. And then it started to change. The voters had a different mindset. They started to look at it differently, and rightfully so. They're like, no. If you were good, if you were the best at your position, and you had a little bit of a shorter career, that doesn't necessarily matter as much anymore. You see the Patrick Willis is getting in with a short career. I'm a little surprised Luke Kuechly's not in yet, to be honest with you. If Patrick Willis is already in. But they changed that mindset, and that allowed guys like Sterling Sharpe, Tony Baselli, Terrell Davis, those guys to get in whose careers were cut short because of injuries suffered play in the game. There's no question about it. Sterling Sharpe was easily on a Hall of Fame path. And good to see that he finally gets in. I mean, I can't imagine. I'm not to that situation, but all these years going through Sterling's mind, playing at a high level, then finding out you got to call it a career. 2 years later, your team goes on to win the Super Bowl without you. Your brother has all the success, winning some Super Bowls, getting into the Hall of Fame, and just going through the what ifs. What if I didn't get hurt? Would I have a ring? Would I already have a gold jacket? To go through that for as long as he did, now finally getting in, it's like, God, that's going to be a good feeling for him, and good for him too. Great for him. The Packers, after it was officially announced last night, Mark Murphy coming out with a statement on behalf of the entire Green Bay Packers organization. I want to congratulate Sterling on his long overdue election to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He left an indelible spit it out, Dan, mark as one of the greatest players of his generation, while also directly contributing to the revival of the Packers during the 90s. We are extremely happy for Sterling and his family and are forever grateful for all that he gave and accomplished with the Packers. All right, let's take a quick break. Who was? Let's go down memory lane here a little bit. Let's have just a fun conversation. Who was like that first player for you, maybe growing up as a kid, that you recognize, like, okay, when you think about your child and you think about your favorite teams, who was like the first player you remember watching that really stood out to you, like one of the best or one of the greats? Like Sterling was that for me. Between Sterling and Reggie were it for me. All right, quick break. We'll be back here in just a few minutes. Looking for somewhere to watch the big game? You can head on over to our good friends, the VFW Post 305, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. They've got their big game party nacho bar. Heck yeah. Brats. Oh, yeah. Hot dogs. All you can eat for only $15. Raffles, games, and giveaways. Sounds like a fantastic time. So if you're looking for somewhere to watch the game and take advantage, that's a heck of a good deal. All you can eat for $15 for all that. Head on over to the VFW Post 305, located on Star Avenue. Let's catch up on some text here as we finish up. Jeff says, I always thought I was going to be just like Dino Cesarelli. Oh yeah, from the Minnesota North Stars, young hockey player. Dino, I remember playing video game with Dino. The jerseys I have hanging in my man cave are Dino and Gretzky. Reggie White had my number during my college days. That's a reminder. I want to do something, a little show and tell. I want to do like a show and tell segment. Now I know it's hard to do like talking about it radio, but it'd be like an online thing. If you got any sweet man caves or sweet collections or sweet, like if you're a card collector or your kid's a card collector and they got a sweet card, send them on over so I can feature. I'd like to do one every week. I'd like to feature one every week and give you a shout out for that. A little show and tell. Remember back in our school days, we would do show and tell. I don't even know if they still do that. I don't think my kids ever had to do show and tell. But remember, we'd always like to do show and tell as kids and such. So I want to do that sports version. Man caves. If you got a cool collection or a cool, sweet card, sports card, or anything like that, send them on over if you don't mind. And then I'm going to show it off for the rest of the world out there. So Jeremy says, with the not so star powered Hall of Fame name, taking nothing away from them, but the names don't have the power as a Manning. I would agree with that. Calling it now Packers Chargers in the preseason Hall of Fame game with the Antonio Gates and going in with the Chargers and with obviously with Sterling and such. Now, let me just double check because the only other options would probably be Vikings in there, and it's not going to be Packers versus Vikings, or the Eagles with Eric Allen in there. Well, Green Bay plays, and Green Bay and Minnesota both play Philadelphia next year because they play the NFC East. So it can't be Minnesota. I mean, I guess it could be because we've seen that before, but that's probably a good guess, or maybe a Minnesota versus but wait. No, I don't think it could even be Minnesota versus the Chargers because I think I'd have to double check it, but I think do the Vikings play a Chargers? Anyways, no, I don't need to go down that path. Then I'll get completely sidetracked. But I wouldn't argue with that one. Another texter here. Got Steve from Eau Claire. Now that Sterling is in, which Packer player do you think is now the most deserving to get in? And who do you think is most likely to get in next outside of Rodgers? Yeah, Rodgers is a lock whenever that's going to happen. I still say it's Holmgren. But you said player. So if we take Holmgren out of that, take Holmgren out of the equation too, Steve? I'll have to give me a few minutes to think about that. Because that list has gone down. I mean, in the last 8 years, it was Jerry Kramer. I mean, I remember I could tell you the list that I would have had 8, 9 years ago. Jerry, Leroy, Sterling, Bobby Dillon, back in the day, safety, Hawkeye, play with one eye. He got in as part of the 100th anniversary. But those would have been the 4. So give me a little bit. I have to think about that. I think there's okay. I'll get back to you on that one, Steve, during the break here. I'm trying to think of maybe a more modern one. Anybody? I'll throw it out to everybody else too. If anybody else has an idea, it's not going to be Donald Driver. I know everybody's going to want to say Donald Driver. It's not going to be Donald Driver. It's not going to be him. It's not going to be Amon Green. I know that's going to be another one out there. That's those two. They don't have They don't have the credentials, I think, that the Hall of Fame is looking for. So I don't think it's going to be those two. I'd be shocked if one of those two gets in. It's not going to be Jordy Nelson. It's not going to be any of those guys. I don't think it'll be him because he played way, way too long and or way too short, excuse me. But there's one guy. I mean, he played 7 years too, the same as Sterling Sharpe, but he didn't really maybe explode on the scene. Nick Collins was on a path for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I mean, he was on a path. That 2008 to 2010 stretch, that dude, to me, was one of the best safeties in the game. And he was easily on a Hall of Fame path, but I don't think he only played 95 games. Sterling played, what did we say? 128 in 7 years. But you look at what he did from 2008 to 2010. 7 interceptions in 2008. 3 touchdowns in 2008 too. 6 in 2009. 4 in 2010. We know the Super Bowl one there. He was an all-pro, second team, those 3 years, and a Pro Bowler. Gosh, I think he was really on a path to get there. I really do. I will throw a wild card name out there. I don't think he's going to. Gosh, maybe I shouldn't say I don't think he's going to get in, because we are seeing this trend now of players whose careers ended short because of an injury. I'm going to throw a wild card name out there because he's got 5 All-Pros, 2 first-team All-Pros, 3 second-team All-Pros. What about Bakhtiari? 10 years, 10 seasons in the league. His last couple marked by that knee injury. But, I mean, he's got the 5 All-Pros in there. So, Todd, is that a wild card one in there? Possibly, maybe. That's a tough one for me. That's a tough one. Vern Llewellyn, that's a fantastic pick, Steve. Yes, you're exactly right. Thank you for throwing that one out there. Vern Llewellyn, 100%. Fantastic pick. If you know your Packers history, Vern Llewellyn should have been in a long time ago. Thank you. You're right. It should be Vern. It's going to have to come through a senior committee one, which is going to be tough. It's really going to be tough for him. But, yeah. James Lofton, is already in the Hall of Fame. Or I don't know if that's who you're picking, or you're talking about. Maybe that's who you're talking about for your first player that you can remember. That's my apologies. I think that's probably who you're referring to as your first player that you could think about when you were a kid. All right. Let's finish up with Morgs. Hi, Morgs. How are you?
Oh, good enough. How are you guys?
I'm doing good.
Talking Packers, I hear you guys right now. Yeah. Obviously, that doesn't affect the big game this weekend. But a little Super Bowl trivia for you. I'll start it out easy. We'll stay on the Packers theme right now. Who won the first Super Bowl? Come on. I'm giving you, it's a slow pitch. I'm giving you an easy.
Packers.
I'm giving you an easy. Okay. All right. So you get Hudson laying down bets for Sunday?
I mean, rooting interest, possibly.
Do you care about the game?
I want a good game.
That'll probably be what we get. I think at the very least, even if you don't care about the teams, because it's the complete inverse of what most people wanted to see.
And I know that's kind of the lame answer that everybody says and such.
Yeah.
But it's like, I've got issues with both teams. So I guess, it's the thing that's going to bug me if the Chiefs win is the whole three-peat thing.
Okay.
Green Bay's done it twice.
Okay. So what teams have won the most Super Bowls?
Would that be the Super Bowls, not championships?
Super Bowls.
Okay. Steelers?
Yes, and?
Oh, Patriots.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So what team has lost the most?
Is it Buffalo with 4?
No. Both have 5. I'll
Both
say
have
that.
5.
2 teams have lost 5 Super Bowls.
2 teams have lost 5 Super Bowls. Okay. Well, Patriots lost 4. Did they lose 5?
They lost 5. So they're
Okay.
one of the teams.
I know they lost 85, and then they lost to the Packers, and they lost. Okay, yep. Never mind. 5. Okay.
Okay, and then I'll give you a color scheme.
Yeah.
Navy and orange.
Oh, Broncos.
Yes, there you go.
Yep.
Okay, so then what teams have never played in a Super Bowl?
So that would be the Lions, that would be the Browns, that would be the Jaguars, and that would be the Texans.
Yes, those are the teams. Yeah. Now looking at the screen, what team has a logo only on one side of it?
Steelers.
Yeah. Do you like that?
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Okay.
I mean, it's still old school, so
Why
there is a reason for it.
tell us?
Because I just looked this up actually the other day.
We're talking about logo on one side of the
Yeah.
helmet, guys. Like why they're the only team that has that.
Yeah, if you don't
Single-sided
count
logo.
the Browns who don't have one.
Yeah, they're
on there.
logo-less.
Because it was originally a test to see how it would look on gold helmets, the team liked the look and decided to keep it permanent.
Okay.
So
I'll give you this then. What player has thrown the most passing touchdowns in NFL history?
Brady.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then similarly, what player has won the most Super Bowls?
Brady.
How many?
7.
Yeah. Okay. Second most
Second most Super Bowls.
player. What player has won the second most Super Bowls?
Charles Haley.
Yeah. Look at you.
I know,
You're
right?
warming up. Hudson, you're going down. I'm sorry.
Hudson's got a sports
Show no
trivia
mercy.
contest Monday night too.
Where's that going to be at?
VFW for kids.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah?
You better be listening right now and learning from Pops.
So what does he do then? Belly up with other kids and go head to
He's
head?
got a team.
Oh,
No,
man.
he's
Like
got
a
a
quiz
team.
bowl?
Yep. And
Move
I can't help.
over.
I can't help.
Oh,
It's going to bug me.
You're just going to sit in back and try to pantomime.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
I hope they have phone a friend.
They're going to kick you out. You're going to get dragged out of there by the collar of your shirt, buddy. Let him go up there and do the hard work.
Do we got one more? Or is that
Do they
all
have
of
a
them?
team name?
I think because it's his football team, I think they're going to go with their football team name, the Yellow Jackets. And they're going
Okay.
to wear their football jerseys.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And have you made your football or your Super Bowl call yet? Have you made it? Under
Not
the
yet.
wire?
Not yet.
Yeah.
8 o'clock hour. I'll tell you off the air.
I'll ask Hudson. He probably
right.
knows. Tried and tried. Lots of rehearsals and nothing really landed. Just decided to give it up.
After numerous unsuccessful attempts.
For Sports Talk 105.1, I'm Morgan McCarthy.
Temperatures are starting out seasonably cold this morning in the single digits. We are going to have a dry end to the work week, a mix of sun and clouds. Those highs make a run for the low 20s. Later on tonight, cloud cover thickens with snow developing by midnight or after. We are going to continue with accumulating snow through the day tomorrow. It will wrap up by the evening. A winter storm watch will be in effect, 3 to 7 inches of snow possible. On 13 First Alert, meteorologist Derek Dahlman.
News about cheese this morning on Sports Talk 105.1 and AM 790 as we look at our farm news. Of course, the Super Bowl on Sunday. And how much cheese will Americans consume for Super Bowl? About 29 million pounds of cheese. That's the most cheese that we eat any one day of the year. So maybe the game will go into overtime and we'll eat even more cheese. Also on March 4th and 5th, we'll find out who has the best cheese because the U.S. cheese industry will be coming to America's Dairyland on those 2 days for the 2025 United States Championship Cheese Contest. The event will be held at the Resch Center near Lambeau Field. The contest will once again be hosted and run by the Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association, and they already have 31 states being represented with over 2,400 entries of cheese, butter, cultured products, and dry dairy ingredients. Those entries will be judged in 117 different classes with gold, silver, and bronze medals being awarded in each class. And the winners overall announced on Thursday, March 6th. That event is held every 2 years and is always held here in Wisconsin. Well, besides choosing Brooke Rollins to be the next Secretary of Agriculture, President Trump has also made other high-profile nominations at USDA. That includes Michael Boren from Idaho to be Undersecretary for Natural Resources and Environment, Richard Fordyce, a Missouri farmer, to be Undersecretary for Farm Production and Conservation. Now, that position oversees the Farm Service Agency, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and the Risk Management Agency. In the first Trump administration, Fordyce was administrator of the Farm Service Agency. Also selected by the president to be Undersecretary for Marketing and Regulation Programs is Dudley Hoskins. He's currently a counsel for the Senate Ag Committee, was a senior advisor to Trump's first Ag Secretary, Sonny Perdue, and chosen to be Undersecretary for Trade and Foreign Agriculture Affairs, Luke Lindbergh, currently the president and CEO of the South Dakota Trade Association. All those positions do need approval by the full Senate. That's a look at some of our food and farm news this morning. Enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend on Sports Talk 105.1 and AM 790. I'm Bob Bosold.
Imagine a child in extreme poverty waiting over a year to be sponsored. End their wait today. Become a compassion sponsor. Text RADIO to 83393.
Ladies and gentlemen, sports aficionados and armchair quarterbacks, welcome to the Dan Kasper Show, where sports passion meets expert analysis. Dan's encyclopedic knowledge and infectious passion for all things sports is both impressive and sad.
I have many leather-bound books.
So get ready to laugh, cheer, and maybe even facepalm a few times.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
It's the Dan Kasper Show.
Second hour kicking off on this Friday morning. Big thank you for tuning in, wherever, however you're tuning in, the Friday before the Super Bowl. Don't forget to give us your picks. Eagles, Chiefs. We're going to reveal what our listeners, our Sports Talk Nation, where the vote is going towards, who's the favorite according to all of our intelligent listeners out there. Send us your picks, text it, tweet it, Facebook it, email it, comment on the video streams, whatever is easier for you. We kick off this hour as we usually do every Friday, though. We're going to catch up with our doctor.
Paging Dr. Crow. Breaking down the latest in sports injuries. It's time for Inside the Training Room with Dr. Crow.
You better call me a doctor.
On the Dan Kasper Show.
He is Dr. Austin Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us here this morning. So, Austin, we'll get your Super Bowl pick coming up towards the end. But how you doing this morning, bud?
I'm doing fantastic.
Hey, are you ready for it? You guys do you do anything usual for the big game, or does it kind of depend on who's playing in it?
It depends on who's playing. I mean, we'll often throw a little shindig at the place, but we're actually heading out of town, heading to Steamboat on a ski trip. So
Nice.
I will be out of town for this one. So
Nice. All right. Storm comes?
That's the hope.
Yeah.
We will see.
Well, hey, that's where I want to lead off with the Super Bowl. Not a lot of injuries heading into this one, but maybe one player in particular will be interesting is Brandon Graham, who said he's going to retire after this game, but he's trying to play in this game. He tore his biceps, though, on November 24th, and they've listed him as limited in practice and such. Tearing your biceps, that's usually an injury I think causes a player to miss the rest of the season, and we're talking about early February. What do you think the odds are that he can play, and if he is going to play, I mean, how effective could he really be out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the extent of the injury. I mean, traditionally, if you have an injury to one of the major, elbow flexors or extensors, because I think I saw it was his triceps, not his biceps, but either way, it's going to be either what bends or straightens your arm. Turns out you need both of them to play football. So if it's a partial tear, he might be able to go out there and participate. If it's complete, I mean, he's going to have significant impairment in his ability to flex or extend the elbow. So I mean, it would be very challenging for him to go out there and compete at a high level. But if it is more of a partial injury, perhaps he's able to kind of fight through that. And so, I mean, I think the team is going to do what's right for them. I mean, they'll probably give him a warm-up, see what he can do. And if he's able to participate at a level they feel is going to give him a chance to win, he'll get out there and play. But I just got to say, I mean, just at the sound of it, usually if it's like a low-grade partial, then it probably won't be a big of a deal. But if it's high grade or complete, I just think it's going to be very difficult because you are correct. Generally, that is a season ending. You get surgery and start rehabbing.
This was actually the next questions actually came from a listener a little bit earlier, and he wanted me to ask you. He says, I know you and Dr. Crow talk a lot about ACL injuries. Is there any studies that he knows that could help prevent injuries? Like, could it be different shoes or knee braces, or does equipment even factor in with tearing ACLs?
Equipment-wise, not a ton. We do know that there are certain things that can affect injury rates. So, for example, in football, like bracing of the knee will help MCL injuries for interior linemen. That's why most offensive linemen in college and NFL, you'll see wear knee braces because they get rolled up on a lot. And ankle braces can help with ankle sprains, things like that. When it comes to ACL tears, the only thing that's really been shown to decrease the tear rates, it's not equipment. It's actually kind of like a rehab or conditioning protocol, especially in young women. So there's these programs that have come out that it's about kind of having control of your hips and land because the majority of ACL tears are non-contact injuries. So it's often people jumping, landing awkwardly, or planting, and the knee will basically fall inward. And so really you're doing exercises to help the athlete keep their legs straight and in control. And that comes partially through like the lower leg, but actually part of it comes through the hips as well. And so strengthening exercises, those have been shown to decrease ACL tear rates. So and that doesn't take it to zero, but it certainly has shown a decrease. So there's a lot of schools that will do that for the young athletes. Again, it's most effective in young women. And so that's the thing that they can do as far as jumping and strengthening programs to help decrease that. But, unfortunately, there's not a single cure-all where it's like we give you the patent, Austin Crow sock that prevents ACL tears. Maybe I should start marketing it. I don't know, but
there you go. It's like those copper bracelets or all that stuff there too.
Sure, yeah, Brett Favre, maybe.
That's because when they were talking about equipment, like I didn't know, like cheap shoes. I kept going back to Zion when he blew out that shoe. Remember from a couple years ago and that. So I don't know. Does cheap shoes matter or not really when it comes to ACL?
I would say probably not. I mean, it's I guess you could have a fluke thing where like the shoe blew out and you slipped or something to that effect. But it's not often so much the foot getting caught in the ground with that type of injury. It's more of how the body shifts above it. Unfortunately, I don't think that kids aren't going to be able to use it as an excuse to convince their parents to buy the new Jordans, I don't think.
I want to move to baseball here quick, just because we're getting close to spring training starting. And, for Brewers fans, they're kind of hoping to see Brandon Woodruff come back this year. And I know we talked about him a little bit when he first had that injury. And that was a refresher, an anterior capsule in his right shoulder. And, Pat Murphy the other day still tampering down expectations, saying he's probably not going to be ready in spring training, probably not going to be ready to go for the regular season. He had missed all of last year. But maybe as a refresher, since we are getting close to baseball starting, why is this injury such a hard one for pitchers to come back from?
Well, any shoulder injury is tough for throwers. So, but the issue is going to be generally when we're repairing the anterior capsule, it's due to instability. So the shoulder shifting in ways it's not supposed to. There's several different things that stabilize the shoulder. So we have the actual bony anatomy. So you have the ball and the socket. And then the socket, which is called the glenoid, there's a little rim around it called the labrum. And then attached to the labrum is the capsule and the ligaments. And so as you look at those structures, some of them are set, right? So like the bone is what it is. But we can have injuries to the labrum or the capsule that we can attempt to repair. So presumably he was having some level of instability in the shoulder that resulted in them deciding to repair that capsule and probably labrum associated with it. Well, the challenge is that you're walking this incredibly fine line where when you're tightening the shoulder up with a capsular repair, we call it capsulorrhaphy. If you make it too tight, you're going to limit range of motion. If you don't tighten it up, the shoulder will remain unstable. And so on an athlete that's throwing, especially, I know we've talked about this before, if you ever look at a slow-mo video of a thrower, it is absolutely mind-boggling what the arm actually does. How far it cocks back and the velocity that it comes through. So if you limit that motion, you will impair that pitcher from ever getting back to where they were. So, there's pretty good studies that have looked at that. So labral work and capsular work on throwers, the return to elite throwing, unfortunately, is not great. It's not bad. So it's not like you have the surgery and you're guaranteed never to come back. But I would say to get to where he was before, you're probably looking at 50, maybe a little higher than that. Could he get back to a little bit higher percentage? But it's tough to come back from that. And so he's going to be able to get first, he's going to have to get all of his range of motion back. Then he's going to have to work on the muscles that keep the shoulder stable. And then he has to turn the arm back into a MLB pitcher's arm, right? So there's going to be a lot of phases to this. And that's why they're not going to rush this back. They don't want to get it back too quickly. So if he doesn't have the appropriate range of motion or the strength, he's going to put stress on that shoulder and either re-injure it or just aggravate it and get stuck in a cycle of inflammation on that shoulder that he won't be able to break out of. So it is going to be, I don't anticipate this being a quick recovery, especially in a thrower shoulder. It's going to be some time. So again, all hope is not lost. I wouldn't say that at all, but certainly it's going to be a battle for him to get back to where he was. But if he's able to get there, there are some that do get back and throw at really, really high levels. So we're certainly hoping that for him.
Yeah, no question. One of the awards for the NFL that was given away last night was Joe Burrow winning Comeback Player of the Year. And I know, at least on social media, people are like, what? Why Joe Burrow for Comeback Player of the Year? But let's rewind it to when he suffered an injury. I know you and I talked a little bit about it, and I could still remember the video where he's trying to grip a football, on the sideline and such. So maybe again, kind of as a why was that such a major injury? Because I think people kind of forget that there was a lot of question marks, with Joe Burrow coming back this year, how well he would be able to play.
Absolutely. And I was one of them. I said it on air. That injury, so an injury to the scapholunate ligament, which is one of the main ligament stabilizers in the wrist. That is a devastating injury. Now, I don't know the extent of his injury, so maybe he had a partial tear or something, but complete disruption of the SL or scapholunate ligament. It is. There are plenty of people who aren't able to get back to like regular jobs, let alone throwing a football in the NFL. So for him to get back to that level, I absolutely nothing short of spectacular. Not only that, he did it at a high level. He might have led the NFL in yards or close to it if he wasn't. It was just a fantastic year he had. So I think when you look at that injury and his ability to come back from it in one season, absolutely deserving of that award. It's one of those that there are times that these guys are able to come back from injuries, just at a level that normal people aren't, because guess what? They're not normal. I mean, there's a reason he was an NFL quarterback, because of what he's able to do with his body. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised when some of these guys come back from this, but that can be a very devastating injury.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then to wrap it up, I know it's not a new injury or anything like that, but last night too in the Hall of Fame, Jared Allen got in. Your Viking over there too. So also Sterling Sharpe getting into the Hall of Fame. But this kind of relates to, I think, one free agent for the Packers is A.J. Dillon, who suffered some stingers, like 2 stingers, and he didn't even play at all this year. And still haven't really heard what the main issue is, but you got to wonder if it's that neck issue that maybe that Sterling Sharpe also suffered that cut his career short. So was that? Can you explain again what exactly with the vertebrae and the narrowing? What caused Sterling Sharpe to miss the rest of his career?
Correct. Yeah. So he had a run of stingers, right? So stingers is a term we use when an athlete has basically electric shooting pain or like radiculopathy down the arm. So I get this like burning pain. Sometimes it just hurts. Sometimes it's numb. Sometimes it's weak. And sometimes it's completely benign. So the kind of mild version is where you take a hit and it puts tension, or what we call traction, on the brachial plexus. So it pulls on the nerves. It hurts. Most people who play football have had it happen to them at least once or twice. And it can be scary. I mean, for a split second, you're like, I don't know if I can move my arm. It hurts. But the mild version, bam, it goes away. It comes back, and they're 100%. When they start getting it over and over, you start getting worried that it's not actually coming from the brachial plexus, that it's coming from the neck. So they'll often investigate with X-rays and MRI, CTs, etc. And some athletes have a combination of what's called congenital stenosis. So stenosis means narrowing. So it means that the opening either of the exiting nerve, what's called the neuroforamen, or centrally the spinal cord, that area, that central stenosis, that can be very dangerous. So pinching of the nerves and traction on the nerves hurts, but it's generally not dangerous. If you have central stenosis, they can get actual spinal cord injuries. And so when you have that narrowing, there's measurements that we have, and we can have these ratios that we look at. And if it's at a critical number, you're basically going to tell the athlete, like, you're at an increased risk of actually having a spinal cord injury without breaking their neck. So it's one thing, anyone could break their neck and get paralyzed, right? That can happen. But we're talking about an athlete being hit where the neck doesn't actually break, but it's so narrow that the bones shift a little bit, and it can actually pinch the spinal cord and cause a spinal cord injury. And to that extent, I believe Sterling Sharpe, in addition to the congenital stenosis, he also had a little bit of laxity there. So we'll get what are called flexion extension X-rays. So you'll extend your neck and flex your neck as far as you can. And everyone has a little bit of natural movement. Some move more. So if you have a combination of narrowing and extra movement, you can have really significant pinching of that. So my assumption is, and again, I don't know this for a fact, but my guess is that he had an MRI that was showing he had bruising of the spinal cord itself with that narrowing, with the hypermobility. And they probably told him, look, your next hit, it could be fine, or you could get paralyzed. And I don't care who you are, you have that story, and it's going to really put the fear of God in you. So that resulted in his early retirement. So there have been a number of professional football players who have had to retire early because of that. And then A.J. Dillon, he was obviously suffering from a similar issue. And again, it depends on the severity of it, depends on the severity of the symptoms. But it can be to the extreme of, again, literal spinal cord injuries. The step down from that is what we call transient quadriplegia, where an athlete takes a hit and the spinal cord gets whacked. And for lack of a better term, you get a concussion of the spinal cord, but they will for a while, and it could be seconds or minutes where they're paralyzed. And I mean, I cannot even imagine being in that scenario. I mean, how scary that would be. So everyone says, oh my gosh, these guys are making millions of dollars and they have a Hall of Fame career. Like, why would they quit? Like, you get paralyzed or think you're going to be paralyzed, it all of a sudden puts things into perspective real quickly.
Absolutely. Wow. All right. Hey, before we let you go, who are you rolling with on Sunday?
Man, I think we said this last week. These are not my two favorite teams. Put it that way. I think, the Eagles, I've never liked the Eagles. They've, knocked off my Vikings a couple times. Their fan base are not my favorite.
That's a theme I'm finding out with Vikings fans right now, is that you and the Eagles. Yeah.
No, just don't get along. And I don't know anyone that really likes Eagles fans, to be honest with you. I don't even know if the Eagles fans like each other. But anyway, but I think when you look at what Mahomes has done and what the Chiefs have done, I mean, maybe it's envy, but it feels like they're going to put themselves in a category that just, I just don't know if they're worthy of it. And I guess, again, maybe it's envy. Maybe I wish it was my team that was doing that. Well, I definitely wish it was my team that was doing that. But for them to win and to put them there, it's like, do I really think they're one of the greatest, runs in football history? I mean, on paper it certainly is, but I don't know. They just don't pass the sniff test. So I guess for that reason, I'm probably pulling for the Eagles. But I don't know. I guess I really am going to have a hard time rooting for either team. I guess. So I guess on paper, I'm going to go with the Eagles. Do I think they're going to win? I mean, just the Chiefs find a way. I mean, they're a football team that finds a way, and Mahomes is an elite player at finding ways to win games, and that you cannot deny. I mean, there are times where he does things where it isn't pretty, but it just gets the job done. So if I was betting money, I would go with the Chiefs. I guess my heart's going to pull for the Eagles, but it's going to be a tough game to watch, truthfully.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. So I think a lot of people are too. So, hey, well, safe travels, man. We appreciate the time and all the best to the fam. Enjoy some time off, and we'll catch up with you again soon, okay?
Absolutely. You take care.
You got it. There you go. There's Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Let's take a quick break, and we've got Brandon sitting across the way. He's ready to go here. We'll get back to some more Super Bowl talk. Get your picks in. We'll see where the majority of people are going. Hit us up on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line or comment on the video stream or hit us up on the socials. Take a quick break, and we'll be back here in just a couple minutes. Bottom of the hour, halfway through this Friday show before off for a snowy weekend. We've got Mr. Brandon Berg joining us here this morning. A good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing okay, except I'm getting a bit of a
Are you getting sick
reverb
again?
in my headphones from you.
Well, I don't know what you want me to do about that.
Well, I don't know.
You're supposed to hear me in the headphones.
But like usually it's at the exact same time. Now
So
it's
like a delay?
It's like a half-second delay, so that's kind of annoying.
Well, it's a good thing we're going to have a new studio soon.
There we go.
So hopefully stuff stops screwing up in here. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell. I don't know if it's something. I don't know.
I don't know. It's never usually happened before. So.
Well, you must have broke something.
I guess so.
But anyways, hi.
Hello.
We're going to get back to some Super Bowl stuff here in just a little bit. I actually want to start off talking a little Bucks here because trade deadline has come to pass. We know the big one that was Middleton for Kyle Kuzma. They also got Kevin Porter Jr. Yesterday too in exchange for Marjon Beauchamp. But Brandon, the Middleton one we had in for Kuzma was something that was rumored like a couple days beforehand, and it really seemed like it was trending to that direction. What did that trade? I don't think it really moved the needle a whole lot. I mean, how big of an upgrade? Like for me, the biggest upgrade from that is just, okay, you got a guy that you know can actually maybe play a couple nights in a row or something like that. Other than that, was this a big improvement for the Bucks in your opinion?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it just if I had to describe it in a word, for me, it's just meh.
Yeah,
like
that's weird. That's the one I keep saying,
meh.
and I think some people are
Like
making fun
there's
of me for that.
nothing.
So
Obviously, there's a lot of steam going into the deadline, especially with the deadline yesterday, just because there's a lot of things out there, and I don't know specifically what might have been realistic for the Bucks.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just come away from this like, are you better than you were before? I don't know, maybe, but are you decidedly better? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wanting to maybe get a little bit more athletic, a little younger,
yeah,
I guess. But, at the end of the day, this is still a team that's going to be probably looked at as being behind those top 3-ish
mm-hmm.
teams as far as if you're just trying to, rank, hey, who's going to go to the NBA Finals out of the East?
And I think you have to ask the question, okay, if you face one of those 3 in the playoffs, would you pick them to win? And I don't think I'd pick them to win at this point. I don't. So, I mean, all last couple weeks I kept saying and thinking, you don't make a move, you don't move on from Middleton unless you got the approval from Giannis. I know there was one report out there said it was approved, but we don't really know the truth. And I know Giannis has talked about it already. He posted about Middleton. Do you feel like they make that move without Giannis' seal of approval?
No.
Yeah.
No, that's something that you are in contact with him about to say, hey, this is, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if I think you try to find a way, and I think Middleton kind of understood the situation and everything, but you want to make sure that any potential blowback doesn't come on Giannis, which I don't think it would have.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was also kind of a thing when you go back to the Dame Lillard trade with trading Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
That, they were really close too. So you just want to make sure, like, yeah, as the franchise player, he's got he's someone you're always going to be in the loop with,
mm-hmm.
but you don't want to totally disregard what he thinks because obviously you would like him to stay.
Right.
And then, that's just a road you don't want to go down.
Mm-hmm. Middleton wise, he's been 12 years with the Bucks, but he's been, even when he was healthy just a few years ago, the question around him was, is he the right Robin to Giannis's Batman? So he always had that label on him. Then they, had Bledsoe and then, Drew Holiday and such, but then, Dame and that, then he had the injuries. So he's always kind of been under scrutiny. And then he got, big contracts, which for some fans said, well, he's not worth that amount of money in that. But you look at his career, for one, I think his jersey is going to get retired. It's going to be up in the rafters. They don't win the finals without him, especially was it game 4 when he dropped 40 points.
Right. And then you remember Giannis getting hurt in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was one of the guys that stepped up.
Right. So, when you look back at it, that guy was a very pivotal, for as much I think he kind of got some flack from fans. He was a very pivotal player for a stretch there for the Bucks.
For sure. And I think in many ways was a good compliment to Giannis because obviously they were very different players, very different skill sets. Giannis obviously not known for his outside shooting prowess.
Mm-hmm.
Middleton certainly was.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's a bummer when those type of things come to an end, especially in that way.
Because it's injuries that
It
kind
is.
of,
It is.
you know,
It's not that. It's not any other reason besides it's something at this point you can't necessarily depend on him physically.
Right.
You know, there's other stuff still there that he could help you with, but if he just can't be out there consistently, for a team that's in the spot it is right now, you can't keep going back to that.
Right. And that's the bad thing or the sucky thing about this is
Mhm.
that you can't count on him to go a back-to-back, or if he's still on a minutes restriction of like 20, 25 minutes or whatever it is for a team that's trying to win it and compete it or win a championship. It's hard to have a player like that on your roster, a player that you're really need to count on quite a bit, and to have that restriction, it's tough.
Right, and the big reason the Bucks are kind of in this spot right now where they're trying to find the right combination around, what's now Giannis, Lillard, I guess to a lesser extent your Lopez's and your Portises of the world, is because this team for a while has just been abysmal at drafting.
Yeah.
You look at the first round picks over the last decade, and it's a graveyard.
Yeah.
Like
DiVincenzo might be the best one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Since Giannis, Dante DiVincenzo is the one pick that's turned into a quality NBA player. Everyone else is washed out.
Yeah.
And that falls on the front office. Like, you can't miss that often. And as this has gone on, the Bucks have been drafting in the latter half of the first round. Okay, you're not going to probably find a superstar there, but we see all the time that you can still find valuable players there. And the Bucks have just swung and missed so often that they've been put into this spot.
So that's the other question. Should John Horst be on the hot seat because you look at some of the decisions, coaching decisions, and obviously when we talk about these trades, we say, well, they don't have a lot of assets, and that's from some other moves that have been made. And as you mentioned, the picks and such. Should John Horst be on the hot seat right now?
Maybe to some level. I mean, because obviously it's the situation is the environment that he had a hand in creating. And even going back to the draft this past year, drafting AJ Johnson.
Yeah. And he's traded now.
Right. A guy that people knew at the time, like, this guy's a ways away.
Yeah.
For a Bucks team that is very much win now, it was just such a curious choice.
And the year before with Chris Livingston from Kentucky,
right?
Right. He was like, oh, that's a few years away though.
Right.
Like, really talented, but
they've always aimed for upside. And look, obviously when they drafted Giannis, that was the ultimate upside bet.
Right.
And those aren't always going to work out. But the amount of times they've swung and missed, you can go back even further. And a lot of this is also crossing over into the John Hammond era too. But guys like Thon Maker.
Yeah.
Who, was looked as,
looked
as being, the
another Giannis type of
player. Just a very physically raw, but, potentially high ceiling player, and just didn't work out. Like, at some point when you have a certain strategy and it doesn't work, you kind of have to switch up what you're doing.
Right.
And that just hasn't happened. I mean, the Bucks have had more success in drafting in the second round than they have in the first round.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that almost sounds a little bit like Green Bay in that sense when you talk about, philosophies and success and such like that too. So, I know it's, the whole, you're going to get the talking heads in the media now talking about Giannis and him wanting out and all that. I mean, that's at a point now where we can't control it. We can't stop it. It's just, it is what it is at this point. But, I don't know, how this season finishes. What if it's another first round exit here? I got to imagine, because they're going to have a little bit more cap space next year. If Horst is still around, does he get that shot to try to, okay, you got a little bit more freedom here.
Take a little more, take another swing.
I think Brooke comes off the books.
Right.
Some of that money over there too. But the arrow trending right now, I don't feel the greatest surrounding the Bucks.
I think at some point, and part of this is the drafting, but at some point, I think this team needs to, and maybe this will be part of what they're doing with kind of their new, I'm sure however their new rotations and stuff work out, is you need to be more athletic, which I think they know, but like more situations of playing Giannis at the 5, where you can get out and run. And that's a little bit tougher when you've got Brooke Lopez a center. I mean, there's things Brook Lopez does very well, but getting out and running in space, and we talk about it a lot with the Bucks, transition, offense and defense, like that's just not something they do well.
Right.
Some of the younger guys that have broken through, your AJ Greens of the world,
Andre
and
Jackson.
Andre Jackson Jr., like those guys have helped with that.
Mhm.
But just overall, it's not where it needs to be, in my opinion, to consistently contend with the Bostons and the Clevelands and the Knicks of the world.
Right. So I don't know. You got the buyout market, which is always kind of
and the Bucks, I mean, they're one of those teams that because of where they are, they can't. There's certain players they can't go and grab. If they made, I think it was 12. There's a number where if they
that's
were
what makes
making,
it confusing with the
it
NBA
is,
stuff.
it is.
But yeah, there's
So
I mean, even to buy out some of the guys that they've done in the past really haven't been difference makers.
Right.
Paul Gasol didn't do a whole lot when
No,
they bought
forget
him.
about that. I forgot about that.
And was it Marvin Williams? I think 1 year or two, a few years ago at the back end of his career. So I mean, they really haven't had that much. There's not going to be a difference maker over there. And okay, Porter Jr. coming in. Depth wise, okay, I'm curious with how it's going to work out rotation wise with everything. I'm not quite sure, but this is an older team too, where this is maybe one of my concerns in the quote unquote second half. I know we're past that a little bit, numbers wise, but with a veteran team that already has a short rotation, you get to the postseason. That's a long postseason,
right?
And you look at the bench, and it's a lot of younger guys outside of Bobby Portis, really, experience-wise. That, to me, is a little bit of a concern when we get there. Like, okay, are those legs going to be good for a Dame, for a Brook, for some of those guys?
Yeah.
And, I mean, outside of Portis coming off the bench, Pat's got experience, but it's pretty obvious Pat has fell out of the rotation for the most part, which is maybe one thing I was a little surprised that they didn't move on from him, that they couldn't find somebody.
Right. Even for, a 2031 second round pick or something. Maybe there just wasn't the market there.
Right. So that to me is, I'm curious to see how this rest of this regular season kind of finishes, because it is an older group. It is an older group. So, but we'll find out. It starts tonight, going up against the Hawks and that. And maybe Kuzma can get back to what he was the last couple of years and such, but I mean, I don't know, like I was seeing some people say, do you bring him off the bench? Is he a bench player? Do you put him in the starting lineup? Because I mean, Middleton was technically a bench player here too.
Yeah.
Do you put Portis in the I don't know how it works out.
I think Doc Rivers may not fully know that either. This may be something that just takes a little time to, experiment with and see what works best.
And I think, Jay Billis has got to be freaking out with the wingspan now with Kuzma coming in. I mean, because he's 6'9", you throw in Giannis, you throw in Brook, and Andre Jackson Jr. is an athletic big guard back there too. So I mean, they got size, but we'll see how it all plays out, I guess. So, all right, let's take a quick break, and then coming up, we're going to do some local sports roundup after these quick words. Coming up just past 8 o'clock, we'll do our cream of the crops. You can send us your cream of the crops. Also, don't forget to send us your picks for the Super Bowl. We'll see where the majority of picks are going at the when we do our picks and predicts about an hour from now. So get those on in. You can text it or comment on the video streams or hit us up on the socials with that. Let's do some local sports roundup brought to you by Carpet City Flooring Center. Brandon, were you at hockey last night? Was it hockey you were at? Little Big Rivers action for hockey?
Eau Claire North at Chippewa Falls. Chippewa Falls picking up the 1-0 win.
Ooh.
Shutout. Like a lot. I mean, the second very close game between those two teams this year. I believe they went to double overtime early this year over at Hobbs, which Chippewa Falls prevailed there. But yeah, we're kind of getting down to the nitty gritty for a lot of these sports. Hockey seeding meetings are this weekend.
Ooh.
So we will know here in the coming days for boys and girls.
So does that mean like one more week of regular season action?
Yes, next week is the last week. Usually seeding meetings are a little over a week before the postseason.
Okay. So man, that's coming up here too. So we got that. Basketball wise, we still got a couple weeks left
We do
of the regular season.
Also in the Big Rivers tonight, there'll be a couple big ones really with boys and girls. Boys, Eau Claire Memorial and Hudson. Those are the top two teams in the Big Rivers. Memorial still up top, 10-0 in conference play. Hudson's a couple games back, so they've got a shot. But it's very much a must-win game for the Raiders if they want to, kind of make up some ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then go for excuse me. And then the same thing in the girls, but reverse, where you got Memorial up top, you got Hudson a couple games back, same situation, but that game is in Hudson tonight. So
nice.
In both cases, Eau Claire Memorial, I mean, they can, they're getting close to clinch territory.
Yeah.
If they were to win tonight, those would not be, conference championship clinchers, but you would put yourself right on the doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
And those two teams, the Old Apes, both boys and girls basketball, they've really been the class of the field this year in the Big Rivers, and they can kind of get one step closer here tonight and going into that next week, knowing, hey, we've got we can take care of some business next week and be where we want to be, which is at the top of the BRC.
What about Clover Belt action right now? How's that?
Boys
looking?
Boys basketball last night, a big win for Bloomer, picking up the 1-point win over Stanley Boyd. A couple big ones this week for Bloomer, so they're up top of the conference. Tuesday night, they came from a 13-point halftime deficit to beat McDonald. To that Clover Belt race still has very little separation amongst the top teams, but Bloomer up top. And there's some games, on the horizon. Bloomer right now is a game up on Fall Creek and Regis. Bloomer, I believe, Bloomer's got another one with Fall Creek. There's a big one tonight though with Fall Creek playing Regis. So obviously those are two teams looking to stay on the heels of Bloomer. Bloomer still plays Fall Creek once. Regis beat Bloomer at the end of last week, so they split the regular season series, so that one's done for them. Stanley Boyd still a game back at 5-3, so they're not up by any means, and they still play Bloomer yet. They've still got I believe another game with Regis if my memory serves me correctly, but the Western Clover Belt this year on the boys' side is very competitive. At the start of the week, you had 5 teams within a game, I believe it was.
Okay.
So on the girls' side, you've got a big win last week for Fall Creek, taking out Regis. So they're up the top of the conference right now. You've got both McDonald and Regis hot on their tail. And next Tuesday, you've got Fall Creek traveling to McDonald for a game that could go a long way into kind of determining the conference champion. McDonald, it's a game basically if McDonald wants to grab a share of their third straight conference title, they really need to get Fall Creek. If they're able to knock off McDonald, I mean, they'll have wins in their pocket over Regis and McDonald, and those regular season series will be done. And Fall Creek really kind of controls its own destiny from there if that were to be the case. But last night Fall Creek picked up a win over Bloomer. Stanley Boyd fell to McDonald. And we're getting down to the nitty gritty there. I mean, we've only got a couple. I think next week is kind of the last full week for Western Clover Belt action, because then you got the Clover Belt crossover after that, and then next weekend I believe would be girls basketball pairings will be announced.
Man, then it's going to be that time of year.
It sure is,
man. So I know I gotta mention this here too, but it was just earlier Tuesday in the Altoona Medford matchup. Medford got the 4-point win in boys basketball. The old head coaches for Altoona, Paulie Hendricks is a Medford native, and Ryan Brown for Medford is a Altoona native. So they got that fun matchup. That's always in there too. So a tight one there. Had to throw that one out there.
Of course.
So but I know Altoona is going up against Osceola tonight.
Yep,
So.
middle border competition rolls on tonight.
Mm-hmm. Wrestling wise, are we getting close?
We
to
are.
that?
I mean, we're this weekend. Tomorrow really was kind of the conference meet day, but with the potential weather rolling in. Actually, I know the Clover Belt moved up their conference tournament in Spencer to today.
Okay.
So, and we also saw that with boys swimming as well for the Big Rivers Conference Championships. Both, initially diving was today and swimming was tomorrow, but now both of them are this afternoon and early in Hudson.
Okay.
So, a lot of these schools just trying to get out ahead of, whatever comes tomorrow. You don't want to be traveling in that if it turns out to be pretty nasty. So,
exactly.
Being a little bit proactive on that. So those will be in action tonight. But then you've got next weekend, you've got boys and girls wrestling regionals, and you've also got swimming sectionals.
Okay.
So, I mean, those are really the first sports that are going to hit the postseason for us, and they really roll. I mean, you go wrestling now. You've got, I think I've talked about this before, but we've got boys and girls regionals separate, just because of the numbers are growing, and so I believe pretty much, if I remember correctly, all the teams around here for girls wrestling, that regional's in Merrill.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be a week from today, I believe, and then that sectional 2 weeks from today, I believe, is in Ladysmith, and that's there's no divisions for girls wrestling, so it's your large schools, your Norths, your Memorials, your Chippewas, but it's also your smaller schools as well, all wrestling together. So, but that rolls in there, and yeah, Division 1 and 2 swim sectionals will be next weekend, and so 8-9 days from now we'll have state swimming, which will be known, so that'll be our first state meet on tap, and they just kind of keep rolling out from there.
Right. To kind of wrap up here a little bit too, I know we had some signings.
We did a bunch
day.
of them all around. All around the area this week, and we've kind of hit that second window for you've got the early signing for a lot of sports coming up. That's back in December, but then we had kind of that second window coming up here this week, and we'll have some more as well in the coming weeks, I know as well. But yeah,
I know you had an article out with was it Jackson?
Yeah, Chippewa Falls Jackson Bowling going to Augustana, which the reigning NSIC champions, Division II, Northern Sun. Basically, a lot of the Division II schools in Minnesota and the Dakotas, the ones you're familiar with. People are Winona State. Obviously, I mentioned Augustana, Minnesota Duluth. All of those schools over there, where there are just a ton of talent from the Chippewa Valley that are playing.
Right. And as your piece says too, everybody can go check it out, chippewa.com. But that was a goal. It sounds like
as a youngster, it's something he wanted to do. He wanted to play college football, and he's put in the effort to get there, and he's going to a good program, and he won't be alone. Bloomer Zeke Strand is joining him in that class. So that's a couple very, athletic kids that'll be, jumping into a good program, and I'm sure finding a way to make an impact.
Absolutely. So yeah, and I know gymnastics.
Actually, while you mentioned it last night, shout out to the Chippewa Falls McDonald gymnastics team. Actually set a school record for total points. Last night there was a double triangular at Chi High with basically pretty much all the Big Rivers was there. They're coming up on their conference meet. I forget if it's next Saturday, if it's Saturday after, but it's coming up here pretty quick. So we're getting to that time as well for gymnastics, and Chippewa Falls Menominee won, or McDonald, sorry, Menominee's hockey. We can talk about girls hockey too if you want to. That's a big Big Rivers race coming down to the wire as well. But for Shahai McDonald, they won the conference last year, won the sectionals, finished fourth as a team at state. That's a team I think they've really been building to this year. It's a senior led group that's gonna I have a feeling they're gonna be plenty busy when they get to Wisconsin Rapids. We got a couple weeks before the Big Rivers gymnastics meet yet, but that's coming up as it all does. February is always one of those months where everything just kind of comes and goes so fast. But I mentioned girls hockey.
We had a big one earlier in the week, didn't we? Was it Western?
Western. One day was Western Wisconsin picking up the 2-1 win over Chippewa Falls Menominee. There we go. And actually, next Tuesday is the last day for the conference meeting. You've got Western Wisconsin and St. Croix Valley, who are tied for first, and you've got Chippewa Falls Menominee one game back. And it's a situation where Chippewa Falls Menominee hosts St. Croix Valley, so Chippewa Falls Menominee can still grab a share of the conference title, but they would need a win, but then they would also need Western Wisconsin, who plays at Eau Claire area.
Okay.
So they would need the Stars to do them a little bit of a favor if they could,
Man.
to maybe force a 3-way split next
So
for that
some
conference
scoreboard
title.
watching is what
A little
you're
bit, but
yeah.
and the thing too is, I believe that game is at 5 on Tuesday. So I think by the time the game starts, they would have a decent idea of knowing, what's out there. But still, I mean, that's a conference race that's going to extend into the postseason, because that section is the Big Rivers, Black River Falls, who's a solid team, and Cooley region. So that's one of those tournaments or those brackets where there's like 4 or 5 teams you can make a case for, because in the Big Rivers this year, all these teams have beat up on each other.
Yeah.
They've all, I mentioned, they've all got at least 2 losses in conference play. That's one where it wouldn't surprise me if there was like a 3 or 4 seed that reached 8, just because it's such an even sectional.
All right, man.
Which makes it really fun to watch.
Absolutely. College wise here, we got a busy weekend coming up here. We'll see if, I don't know if weather would affect any of this here too, but let's start off with Stout. I know the track and field teams are going to be at the Gopher Classic over across the border. Basketball is going to be taking on Whitewater. Should be a fantastic one. The women's team taking on Whitewater. So that's 2 ranked teams. What?
No, it just cracked me up how you said that. Like, you're like, one team's facing Whitewater and the other one is facing Whitewater.
Yeah, I know.
It just cracked me up how you alluded to that.
Stop making fun of me, Brandon.
I'm not making fun of you. I was genuinely entertained by something you said.
Okay. Stout taking on Whitewater. Men taking on Whitewater too. So the Stout hockey team taking on number 11 Superior. Blue Gold wise is a really big weekend coming up here. First off, Blue Gold Gymnastics taking down 9th ranked Simpson College last night. So a big time win for women's gymnastics. We got swimming and diving is going to be in action. Tennis is in action too. We got the Don Parker Memorial also in action this weekend for wrestling. So that's always a big one. Basketball wise, men's basketball has a shot here. So they're in 3rd place in the WIAC. The 2 teams that are ahead of them, that's who the Blue Golds play the next 2 games, and they're all at Sonantag. So this weekend, Saturday, they play lacrosse. Lacrosse is in 2nd. Blue Golds are a game back. You beat them, you're tied for 2nd. Who do you play Wednesday? You'll be a game back from Platteville. That's who they play. So a heck of an opportunity here.
Everything they want in front of them.
Yep. So big game coming up this weekend for the Blue Golds at Sonantag. Women's team obviously taking on lacrosse too. But then women's hockey, we know this is always a rival. They're taking on River Falls on Saturday too. So you got that going on for Blue Golds hockey as well. Plus jigs up. So I mean, everybody involved with the Blue Golds is going to have a busy weekend.
Yes.
Coming up here too. So again, I don't know if snow storms would affect any
Take
of this.
Take it easy on us, Mother Nature. We want to get all this stuff in.
So, but definitely pay attention. Could be some big results this weekend. All right, that's your local sports roundup, brought to you by Carpet City Flooring Center. Final call to get some of your Super Bowl picks in. Just simply text us Chiefs or Eagles. That's all you got to do. Or you could comment on the video streams or hit us up on the socials if that works better for you. We'll see where the majority of our listeners are going to roll with this. We'll talk a little bit about the game coming up in the next hour. I do want to talk a little Brewers as well. So we'll get to that. But we'll begin the 8 o'clock hour with a little cream of the crops. So if you would like to send us your cream of the crops, you only got a couple minutes to do so. Okay? So send those puppies on over to that text line, or again, video streams, or hit us up on the socials. We'll catch up on some of the other messages coming up here in just a little bit as well. So, but I was going to ask you if you watched, but you were working.
I was working.
Night. You were working last night. So, do you really quick? If I can spit this out in 30 seconds, do you remember as a kid the very first player that you watched, like a good player? Like for me, like I was talking about Sterling Sharpe, and I'm like, that's one of the very first players I remember. Like, okay, that's a good player. Like, as you can remember as a kid.
For me, that'd be Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you a big Barry Sanders fan?
Yes.
Yeah. Even though you're like my buddy Jake, huge Barry Sanders fan, but he's a diehard Packers fan.
Right. Yeah.
So Barry, I felt like, is one of those probably players that was in your division you could still get away with liking.
Yes.
If that
he
makes
was
sense.
just a likable person, very humble, and obviously you watch him play, and it was just so, there's nobody like him.
Exactly. All right, 2 in, 1 to go. We got some news updates. We'll be back here in just a couple minutes. All right, final hour on this Friday morning. A big thanks for tuning in. Coming to you from the TDS Sports Talk studios this morning. We're going to get to some Super Bowl chat, get your picks in. I will tell you right now, I did a quick addition of the math it's tied with our picks right now. So get your picks in, and we'll see where our listeners are rolling with the majority. So text them on in, comment on the video streams. I've gotten some private messages on Facebook and Twitter and that, so that's fine too. But you can get those on in. Might be Brandon and I that have to break the tie coming up a little bit later on.
Maybe.
We'll see. So get those on in. But it is tied. I was just doing the math during the break there. So we'll get to that. I do want to talk a little Brewers as we are tomorrow, 2 weeks away from the first spring training game that you'll be able to hear right here
Yeah.
on the radio dials.
I saw that and I was very excited.
105.1 FM, 790 AM. So 2 weeks from tomorrow, baby. Saw earlier this week they had the semis packed up and heading out for spring training. So we'll chat a little Brewers. Before that, though, it's Cream of the Crop time. All right, Brandon, let's start with you. Who is your cream of the crop?
I have a feeling we might be in the same boat with ours. Just maybe a little bit different. For mine, I'm going Jared Allen.
Yeah, I think okay.
Okay.
I hate that you can read my mind.
I just had a feeling.
I don't know what that means, but yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of felt like we would both be going up and I mean, rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, Jared Allen being a member of the latest Pro Football Hall of Fame class last night. I mean, and it was one where we had to wait a few years, and I thought it was a bit like Kevin Green.
Yeah.
Where, he had the numbers, but maybe not the overall resume to get in right away, but I knew he would at some point. So that's why I didn't get too bent out of shape about it. It was just a matter of when. And it seemed like this was kind of a good year for that. So, I mean, 136 career sacks, played, with obviously mostly, I'm sure people around here maybe know him with the Vikings, but with the Chiefs, with the Bears, played with the Panthers last year.
I'll be honest with you. I kind of forgot about the Bears. I remember the Panthers one.
Yeah, that was at the end for him. And it was on the Manicast during the wildcard game. He was kind of telling the story about how he almost for that 2015 season was a Denver Bronco. But
then he could have really gone more elk hunting with Spears.
He could have, and he would have had a Super Bowl on his resume.
Yeah.
But he remembers that because he's a free agent. He remembers that it was like right before. That's when the Cowboys let go of DeMarcus Ware. And he looks at his agent and goes, well, we're not going to Denver because they're getting DeMarcus Ware. And that's what happened.
Yep.
So
there's another what if.
Right. But I mean, yeah, just and obviously not just, kind of one of the best pass rushers of his era, but like just one of my favorite players. Like someone that when he got to Kansas City, I mean, he was kind of skating on a little bit of thin ice. He had some off the field stuff.
Yep.
That he got squared away and was walked the straight and narrow really since then.
Right.
And we know him kind of obviously since he retired, he got involved with curling, making an effort to get to the Olympics in curling, which is just kind of an interesting thing for someone to ever do.
Yep.
Does a lot of work with the Wounded Warriors Project. So yeah, just happy to see it and looking forward to what that speech sounds like this summer.
Is it obviously I've when I think of Jared Allen, I think of the lasso sack celebration that he's done on the Packers for a few times.
The rope in the calf.
Yep. So that's in there. But then, I remember I think it was college, my buddy's like, you got to watch this. And it was the spear throwing elk hunt. I think it was from Jared Allen over there sitting in a tree. I mean, the big spear just chucks it down. And it's like, wow. Okay. I don't want to like you, but
the one thing I have to look this up today, but it was before Super Bowl and I forget which one for ESPN. Like it was him and I think Wes Welker. They did a segment for ESPN Sunday Countdown where like we always talk about like these are what all the people that are playing. We know what all the people that are playing the Super Bowl do. What about the people that aren't? And it's just talk. And it's just like this, with like them two and Kenny Mayne.
Oh God, anything with Kenny Mayne,
right? It's just and it's like this, like what? How are they spending their? And there are like so many things in there that like at the time, my friends and I would quote. Like one of the things he was doing was he was throwing a rock across America to raise awareness of foreign countries. So like it was just shows him like in the middle of like the wilderness, just like throwing a rock, walking up, and then someone would ask. He goes, if someone asked me, then I drop some knowledge on him about a foreign country.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna have to look at that during the break.
Yeah, yeah. You're right because I actually had two. little bit of one, but mine was going to be Sterling Sharpe over there too. I mean, we spent a good portion of the first hour talking about that too. So, definitely, Sterling, I mean, that's from our youth, when I posted a picture of when we were kids, whenever you would get the plastic helmet and the shoulder pads and the pants and the jersey. I had mine 84 white one. That's what it was for the Packers. So that was but I remember as a kid that I so badly wanted a jersey with a player name on the back. So what I did with that thing is I took a piece of white paper, green marker, wrote Sharpe, really bad handwriting as a kid, cut it out, grabbed some Elmer's glue, and I glued it on the back of that shirt.
Nice.
I wish I still had it to this day. So yeah, it's Sterling Sharpe. I'm gonna give a small one here, and I'm a little biased when it comes to this stuff, but it was released yesterday. The draft caps, chef's kiss.
They actually look good.
Yeah, I like them. If you haven't seen them, you can go look them up. But each team's got a unique thing. It looks like a pin or whatever's on there. So anybody who had like hats in your like 80s or early 90s, those like what do you call them on the bill? The like Leafs or whatever. I'm blanking on a name. They got those, so they're bringing those back. But for Green Bay, you got it's just a generic. It's the logo, the G, Packers above, Green Bay underneath. No fancy design there, but next to it, it's like I think it's a pin because it looks like it's popping out. And each team's got their own, but for Green Bay, it's perfect. It's a bike. It's a bicycle for training camp and that. So.
Those are good. Like I'm glad to see it's not some of their crazier designs that they've done at times.
So I will 100% be getting one and donning it the week that we're there.
There we go.
The whole time. So, and I expect you to do it too.
Oh,
even if you want to get some eggs thrown at you.
Will I cave into peer pressure?
Yes.
We'll find the guys from Chicago looking for Vicente Shanko. So.
There's nobody else who knows what we're referring to.
Nope.
with that one. So. Be 10 years since.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that like it is 10 years since then is this one.
Yeah.
Does that mean 2025 is going to be in the cities? Or 2035?
I'd go again.
10 years would be good, yeah.
Yeah. Do it every 10 years. I don't even want to tell you how old we'll be then, man. God. Oh, all right. Those are cream of the crop right now. Let's talk some baseball, shall we, as we get to that season and such. But Pat Murphy, I know, did a Q&A with Todd Rosiak from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and different questions, different answers. By the way, did you by chance get to read the whole thing? It started off. So, I mean, the dude was wearing a dapper suit when he got his award.
He was.
He thought he rented it. He ended up buying it. He thought he rented it until he got like an invoice. He's like, "What's this?" And they're like, "It's your first payment." And he's like, "First payment for what?" He thought he rented it. He ended up accidentally buying it.
Well,
so I'm like, but that,
I guess
the
guys...
1 year, that seems like typical kind of Pat Murphy,
yeah,
stuff over there.
Well,
but
maybe he'll get to use it again next year, hopefully.
Yeah. Talked to Dr. Crow a little bit about it, with Brandon Woodruff, but he did say about Brandon Woodruff, don't expect him to be ready for spring training or probably not even for the regular season. Would 100 innings, if you could get 100 innings out of Brandon Woodruff with the uncertainty of him coming back, would you take that and run with it?
Yes, because of the uncertainty of shoulder injuries and his being a little bit older too. Like that is something. If you told me right now, hey, I would take that, because my feeling the whole time with this whole thing with Woodruff was like, for me, it's about the last 3 months of this year.
Yeah,
and kind of building up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know Murphy was asked about your starters, and when you look at the starters, I think it's kind of, and he alluded to it too. I mean, it's Freddie, it's Tobias, it's Quartet, Nestor over there, and then Aaron Savali.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he'd probably throw Woodruff in there, but not right away.
Right.
And would you say that's maybe one of the more stable positions heading into spring training? Is you kind of know who the starters are going to be?
I think so. And they're and for the most part too, it's because they're known commodities. Obviously, Brewers fans are familiar with Peralta. Savali pitched there last year, so they are there. Nestor Cortez has pitched, has been a big leaguer for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and we saw what Tobias did last year.
Right. So it's not as though there's these 3 young guys and we're kind of crossing our fingers. There could be some young guys that step up. Inevitably, there will be young people that step up at different spots. Maybe it's maybe it is someone in the rotation as Brandon Woodruff continues to work his way back. Who knows? I mean, a year ago, nobody knew who Tobias Myers was.
Yeah. Do you think DL Hall is still projected to be a starter at some point?
I think so. I think sometimes people kind of throw DL Hall and Aaron Ashby in the same bucket because they're lefties. They got, good stuff. Like, it's kind of like, well, where do they fit? They've had some injuries. To me, I would still give DL Hall a shot at the rotation. Aaron Ashby, I think at this point, I would just like to see him in the bullpen. And I've kind of felt that way about him for a little bit, but especially seeing how he finished last year, that just, to me, like, okay, that just shows me a guy that, he could be a 7th, 8th inning, power lefty. Like, I'm fine with him being that. At this point, he's a little bit further along. He's a little bit older. So I think at this point, you're kind of looking at a little bit less kind of still testing to see where he fits best, as opposed to, okay, this is what he does. Let's just let him, let him go and do this, and hopefully he stays healthy and can put together a full year, and we can see what that looks like.
Murphy was also asked about, third base, because obviously that's a big question. He did throw, or Todd Rosiak did throw out, would you consider doing Sal Frelick there? And Murphy didn't really shut the door. I mean, if anything, he gave him high praise, saying like, we know he can do it, and that, but a lot going to depend on injuries, because he did allude to, he's like, the reason why it didn't happen last year as much, because, well, you had injuries to Garrett Mitchell and into the outfield, so you needed to have Sal Frelick out there. Is it just going to boil down to that, you think?
It could. And to me, I just would prefer he stays in the outfield. For a couple, I mean, I don't think he has a very good offensive profile for third base. I'm not sure how I feel about just trying to get, basically spending the year trying to see if someone can play a position that I'm not sure that they should really be playing. I mean, he's a Gold Glove outfielder.
Yeah.
Might as well just keep him out. Just put someone in their best position to succeed.
Yes.
And to me, that's, he's parked probably in right field.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I loved his quote when he's talking about Garrett Mitchell a little bit, and I think they were talking about Willie Adames. How do you fill that void? And they got onto the Garrett Mitchell and health, and Pat Murphy alluded, he's like, he's been obviously hurt, the last couple of years, but if you want to be a big leaguer, that's the expectation, is you got to be out there. And I love the last line in there. He said, and that's what I expect. It could have been a very corporate line, like, yeah, it's unfortunate, he's been out.
We think he can be good when he's out there, but no, he's about to say, no, he's establishing the expectation.
Yeah. He's like, you got to be out there.
Right. That's, yeah.
And I love that mindset and that attitude. And I think, and I'm sure some people are like, ooh, players, I think players embrace that.
Oh, Garrett knows that.
Yeah. And Garrett, you're exactly right. Garrett knows that.
I mean, it's not like he's happy he's been, banged up.
Right. Between him and Tobias, I think are like the 2 players I'm really curious to watch this year. Because I feel like, and we were talking a little bit about it earlier this week, but I feel like Tobias is kind of getting forgotten, like just how great of a finish he had last year.
Yeah.
And we talk about expectations and that. It's like, okay, what has he got in store for us this year? Going forward. Like, I'm excited to see Tobias Myers get back out there, and can he continue to elevate that game over there?
Right.
And I don't want to set the bar too high, but I mean, you can make a case for a big chunk of the season. He was the best starting pitcher in that rotation, for the Brewers. I know some people are still saying, but Gasser's not going to be back.
That's going to be an end of the year thing, maybe. Like, at this point, it's just not, like, don't depend on it. Like, you can't just have that in the back of your mind of like, well, then when he gets back, it's going to be great. It's like, well, you just don't know, because different people handle, Tommy John recovery differently,
right.
And you don't want to rush. So just basically treat it as a pleasant surprise if it happens.
Yep. So I'm sure you saw some of the baseball prospectus projections where they got the Brewers in second, the Cubs with 90 wins, and Brewers pretty much 500
right
at this point. So I know it's going to be a rallying cry for fans, or maybe the team's like, yep, but I get why they're projecting the Brewers as around 500. I mean, you lose Willie Adames. That's a hit. You got some younger guys coming back. It's a little bit. So I'm not upset about it.
No.
Like I understand
It's just
some of
that,
the
I mean,
reasoning.
there's certain projection systems that have always kind of, for whatever reason, kind of, weighed things differently.
Mhm.
And maybe that just doesn't work well with the current roster construction for the Brewers. But yeah, it's not one of those things where I'm like, oh, this projection group or whatever, they didn't believe it. It's like,
Yeah.
there's so many of those out there. In my belief, just in general, when it comes to the internet, is like, if you want to find something, you can find it. Like, as far as like people that say something or feel something, it's like,
Yes.
I mean, if you really want to play the disrespect card, you could for pretty much anything.
If you and I say this too with a stat, if you want to find a stat to fit a narrative, you can.
Sure can.
Just because with everything out there with advanced, doesn't matter the sport. If you want to find something to fit a narrative, you can. There's going to be something out there.
Right.
I mean, that's why you have debates every day in sports shows and that. So I think maybe the one that I was really surprised about, the Reds finishing last in the division. I mean, Pirates above them, Cardinals above them. Cardinals were finishing third. That one surprised me with the Reds finishing last.
Right. I mean, they've done some things. They've got young talent, and then bringing in Terry Francona.
I think that alone would help them out.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe this is the year where the Cardinals kind of get back to it. But I don't know. This offseason, like, it just feels very like they're in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's been discussions about them wanting to trade Nolan Arenado, but they haven't yet. And we're pretty close to spring training, and they really haven't done much.
Yeah, Goldschmidt's with the Yankees.
Right.
So.
They have. I mean, I don't know. Can you really I don't see how you can make the case they got better.
Right. Yeah, I don't.
And they
really
weren't
think
very
it's
good
a
last year.
Addition by subtraction.
No.
Sort of thing
No.
either. So
we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's why they play the game, right? All right, let's take a quick break and then let's talk some Super Bowl. Get your picks in. Okay, get your picks in. How do you see this one going? You can pick with your head. You can pick with your heart. I don't care. We just want to get those votes tabulated. We'll be back here in just a few minutes. Well, the NFL schedule is not out. There's a rumor that is circulating about one particular Packers matchup. The NFL half making it official. So there's a rumor that the Packers would play the Steelers in Ireland. That's been going on this week. And the NFL just announced a few minutes ago that the Steelers will be playing in Dublin, Ireland. They did not name the opponent yet, but there has been rumors running rampant this week. It's going
Rampant.
to be rampant that it's going to be the Packers, and even saw dates out there like end of September. So Packers potentially playing the Steelers in Dublin, Ireland at the end of September. That would be a game I would like to go to in Ireland.
It's interesting too because in the near future, Wisconsin plays Pitt.
Yeah,
in Ireland.
That's right. I forgot about that. You'd have to probably put me on a lot of stuff because of my fear of flying, but I would like to get over there and experience that. So.
Ireland, in those two instances, if that arises, will be challenged for their adult beverage production because of Wisconsinites and Yinzers heading over there.
Yep. I would, if I were to go, I would have to, make it at least a week because I'm not that far from Scotland. I got to go find the Loch Ness Monster. I got to be the one. I got to be the one. I at least got to visit, right? If I'm over there, it'll probably be the only time. I'm not going next year unless somebody sends it to me for free, which will never happen. But if I'm there, I got to collect some water from the Loch Ness or something like that and try to get it back home. I know I can't have it on the plane, but somehow I need something from the Loch Ness to get over there. But that would be one for an international game. That one would be. I want to.
Are the Rams playing in Australia or something?
Yeah. Ireland though, no snakes, so you don't have to worry about that.
There you go.
I am deathly afraid of those things. So. Flying, and there's at least one thing. Flying, I get nervous about. Snakes, no thank you. At least they don't have that.
You should have to tie one on at the hotel or at the bar at the airport and get to your seat.
Just knock me out, and hopefully I sleep throughout the whole thing. I've flown once, and it was like when I was going to be a freshman, so it was 2000. Year 2000 was the last time. First and last.
In the year 2000.
So it's been 25 years ago. A lot has changed since then. But that definitely would be one I would go to in a heartbeat. I want to visit Ireland and Scotland, and that would be perfect. But I got to imagine two Steelers and Packers at ticket prices.
Oh, that's going to, because you're going to get a good contingent of fans from both teams that are going to travel for that one.
Everybody always wanted Steelers, the Rooneys. Ireland, that background too.
Plus, with it being one of their home games, I'm sure they're.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I know a lot of these teams, they don't want to give up their home game when Green Bay comes in because of the traveling fan base. You hear that a lot. So, and we know Green Bay is not giving up a home game. So only time for them be 2 years in a row, they'd have an international game for being the last team to have an international game.
All right. They're playing catch up.
Yeah. Were they in England the year before? Would have been 2 years before this year. Oh, it would have been 2 years because Rodgers was the quarterback.
Giants, right?
Yep. Yeah. So, speaking of football, let's.
There's a game Sunday.
Is there?
I guess.
Puppy Bowl. Really looking forward to it. Saw the promo for it, so yep, we'll have that on the tube. So, Jeff says, "Do you know who would be the home team in Ireland against the Steelers?" Are the home team. Yeah,
they're very designated as the home team.
Yeah, it's the Steelers game. So, and that's why they always do the. For some of the Packer ones, it's the extra game when it's like the 9th or whatever. It's always that's why it's still just 8 at Lambeau Field. So, anyways, Super Bowl Sunday. On paper, though, Brandon, don't tip your pick or anything like that. On paper, how do you view this matchup?
I would say on paper, this is a matchup where I think. If you went just position by position group, honestly, I think you would say Philadelphia had the advantage of more of those positions. But obviously not all of them. And the Chiefs certainly do in some key spots. I think it's just a matter of how do you weigh that, roster depth versus high end talent at key positions.
Mm-hmm. It's, to me, you look at Eagles #1 ranked pass defense, but then I saw a graphic where Patrick Mahomes is like undefeated against teams who are ranked #1 pass defense. Saquon Barkley, but then it's like Chiefs. There's so many different matchups with this. Andy Reid versus Vic Fangio as an offensive play caller versus a defensive coordinator. Spags versus Kellen Moore. That's intriguing to me. Obviously, Saquon going up against a aggressive Chiefs defense over there too, and there's a lot to like. I get it. Like, I'm fatigued with this. It's not the matchup I wanted. I think a lot of us wanted Buffalo and Washington when it was
Or
all
at
said and
least
done.
one of them, so you had
had a rooting interest maybe,
right?
In this thing. But when you do it matchup by matchup, it is a very good matchup.
Correct.
When you take away the fatigue part of it or your personal feelings towards it, it is. And I look at, and I've been saying it for the last couple weeks, I love Andy Reid. I just, it's so interesting to me when you look at his career. When he was with Philly, he was a good coach. But I think it's fair to say when he was in Philly, he was probably not going to be a Hall of Fame coach.
No.
He was, and I don't mean this as a knock, but he was, I would say, comparable to Marty Schottenheimer. Won a lot of games, but not in the postseason. Went to one Super Bowl and lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots. And at his age, he kind of had a career renaissance, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And now at his age too, you're talking about a play caller who is like schooling these young whippersnappers with their creative stuff because he's like, hold on, kid, I got something better. The way he's adapted as a play caller. And now we're talking about, is he a top 5 coach of all time? Especially if he wins this Sunday. I think that's, you could have that, or easily top 10.
Oh, yeah.
I think if you redid your top 10 coaches of all time when they did it 5 years ago, Andy Reid's probably in there now. I don't know off the top of my head who I'd take off, but he's easily in there. And I just appreciate, and I'm fascinated with, because when you talk about these NFL hires, more times than not everybody, because Pete Carroll's back, you look for the young,
You're looking for the person you think is going to be there 10, 15 years.
Right. And Andy Reid is just still schooling these people, and he's in his mid-60s.
Yeah.
And even on the other side of the ball, Steve Spagnuolo. You're looking for these defensive coordinators, what's new and all that. And I'll admit it, when they brought back Spags, I'm like, okay, that's, how is that going to help? He has been amazing in these last few years, to the point you've got people saying, should he go to the Hall of Fame as a coordinator?
Right.
I mean, that's high praise to say that,
because he's done it in two different tenures.
Right.
It's not like he just had one good run.
Right. You look at the Giants when he did it there. Then he goes to the Rams. At that point, was just an awful situation.
Right.
To be
That's
a head
a tough
coach.
situation for any coach to be in
Mm-hmm.
as a head coach.
And then he I know he was with the Saints as a defensive coordinator. Then he was with Baltimore for a little bit, and then gets back. And then he was back at the Giants when Ben McAdoo was head coach there too.
Oh, no one is gonna achieve in that situation.
Right. And then goes to Kansas City because he was with Philly under Andy Reid, and just, you want to talk about another kind of resurrection with his career. So, and then I appreciate that, because we are such in a, youth, got to get the younger, fresher mind. And you look at what the Chiefs are doing and their coaching staff with Andy Reid and Spags. And as a fan, how can you not appreciate that?
Right. And as the old saying goes, you can teach, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, in this case, you can.
Yeah. And I think that's part of it too. And I know we probably talked about it last year or the year before when they were in it. Chiefs aren't in it solely because of their offense. Their defense has been really good.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at 2 years ago when that defense was full of rookies and second-year guys, and they were really good. And that's what, for me personally, was the envy, because you have all these young guys. Why is their defense so good? And we can't do that. And that's a credit to the coaching staff and to the front. I feel like this is a Super Bowl matchup where you've got the 2 best general managers in the league too.
Yeah.
Brett Veach, with what he has done with the Chiefs, and Howie Roseman with the Eagles, especially this past offseason. Saquon, probably the signing of the year. But he was the guy that said, okay, Sirianni, you are going to hire Vic Fangio. You are going to hire Kellen Moore. I'm bringing in these two coordinators. Well, that's worked, you
Sure
know.
has.
So I look at it and just how well Howie is drafted, especially on the defensive side. I mean, it's like defensive linemen and linebackers and such. So I feel like this is the draft, or this is the Super Bowl of the two best GMs in the game right now too. And there's so many matchups with this thing that if you're just a fan with no personal feelings towards it, it would be a good matchup.
Right.
It's a good Super Bowl when you
In a
break it
vacuum,
down. In a vacuum.
it's a really good Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. I did my underdog picks in there, and there's some surprising lines in this. Like they got Harrison Butker, the line's at 1.5 field goals. And I feel like I should hammer the over on that one.
Yeah.
Saquon's half a touchdown, rushing or receiving.
Yeah, he scored a touchdown.
Yeah. I'm like, I feel like that's a safe one. It's interesting you hearing people saying Philly should come out and throw the ball, though. I heard Sal Paolatonio say that to DP, that they should come out throwing the football right away and just attacking with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Don't know if that'll happen, though. I don't know. Kellen Moore, we know, is going to be the head coach of the Saints. So,
although he has a chance to do the funniest thing
and say no, thank you.
Yes.
This is the thing that kind of like it screams of Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta.
Right, where but you really can't say but you know.
And you know what happened in that Super Bowl?
Oh no.
Right?
28-3.
28-3. So I'm not saying that's going to happen again, but that's like, because who wasn't there? Oh, wasn't it Dan Quinn when he was with Seattle as a defensive coordinator?
I think he might have
in the
been.
Patriots one, and he was like going to be the Atlanta coach, and that was the why didn't you hand it off to Russell? I think it was that Super Bowl, wasn't it? Because Gus Bradley was D coordinator before him. I think I'll have to double check. But you ready to make some picks?
I think so.
All right, last call. It's very close, very, very close with our picks. We'll take a quick break, and we'll wrap it up after these quick words. Time for some picks and predicts this morning, brought to you by the Elbow Room. Also on Sunday, going on at the Elbow Room from 12:30 to 2:30. It's the soup. Get it? Soup contest. 18 entries will be entered in the broth and cream categories. So free samples, donations are suggested for Feed My People Food Pantry. So stop on down 12:30 to 2:30 on Sunday. Let's just do straight up football ones. This is our last time we could do some football picks for a while, so we're just going to do straight up football and do some prop ones and all that.
Some other ones too.
Yeah.
Associated.
Well, let's start off with that one, shall we?
Yeah.
The Puppy Bowl, because where else are you going to hear Puppy Bowl picks? Not only game, but an MVP.
Correct.
So who are you picking to win the Puppy Bowl? I'll let you get, because whatever you pick, I'll go the opposite just to keep it fair.
All right. We've got Team Fluff versus Team Rough.
Yep.
I'm going Team Rough.
Good. I want a Team Fluff, so we're good.
Okay.
Who's your MVP?
I am going to go with Strudel.
Strudel. Okay. I am going to go with Zipper.
I was thinking Zipper too if I would have went that route.
Mm-hmm. It was between, for me, it was between Zipper or where is the little guy here? Oh, Whoopi. Whoopi or Zipper, but I'll go with Zipper. Looking at the picture here, he looks like a game MVP. So
if I would have went Fluff though, I'm liking Winston, who's a big.
I'm a little bit worried about his speed.
He might be a little bit lower energy. He's a big dog. He's a big fluffy brown dog.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what.
You need the hyper dogs in this one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You need the hyper ones. So it might be one of the little ones out here.
The yip dogs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'm blue, you're red or orange or whatever the color is, in case anybody's, I don't know the names. Okay. Let's do prop bets before we get to the game. I got some prop bets here for the Super Bowl. Okay. Color the Gatorade.
Ooh.
The big one that everybody.
It was purple last year, I think.
I think so.
I'm going to go purple again.
I'm going to go blue. I don't know why, but I'm feeling a little blue.
Blue has more antioxidants in it.
No, it doesn't, does it?
And it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference.
Oh, okay.
Blue has the most antioxidants.
This is going to annoy me. Does Kelsey propose?
I think we did this last year too. I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I'll say no. No.
Spoiler alert. What if it's Jason? And he's already married.
And he's having another kid coming too. So, I mean, for
that
crying
could
out
throw
loud.
a fly in the ointment.
National anthem, does it go over 2 minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it does.
I'm going to say it does too. Who's going to have the best commercial? This one's hard because I don't, I was trying to think of one for a commercial.
Right.
But it's like, but they've been so bad the last few years.
Right.
I know McAfee's in one, but
I don't know.
I don't know either. Let's skip it.
Yeah.
Let's skip it, and we can talk about it next.
Hear that, all of our corporate champions? We are very, very low.
If there's a Super Bowl that I'm watching for just the commercials, it's this one.
Right.
So please come with your A games. I want a memorable one. Do you have a memorable one? Is there one that always just like from your kid time, youth time?
I don't know.
Mine's always like the frogs.
Yeah, the Budweiser
or the
frogs.
Was Up.
Yeah.
It's always Budweiser with the Clydesdales or the frogs or the dogs or the
logs. Yeah, I mean, those are the ones I think people of our generation.
Doritos is up there too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can bring back 3D Doritos.
Yeah. I wasn't a big fan of 3Ds. The 3D Doritos.
Like, I don't even necessarily. I remember the Cool Ranch ones, but it's just funny to me that was like a thing. Like,
Cool Ranch used to be better back in the day too. We had more seasoning on those chips. I mean, come on. If you put your hand in there and you busted out a Cool Ranch that was just loaded with seasoning.
Goodness. It's like you won the lottery.
Exactly.
You savored that puppy.
And it was in the bag where you had the clear opening in the fronts, the whites and, the blue.
So you can see how much you had the window.
Yes.
The chip window.
Yes. That's when it was the best. But gone are those days now, too. Great googly Mowgli. Super Bowl MVP. No, we got to make our pick before we do Super Bowl MVP. So, is there any other prop bets that we want to? One, I did see one. What's color of Tom Brady's tie? I don't care.
I'm gonna go blue.
I think that was a leader. I'll go.
Okay.
I'm gonna go purple and white. I'll go purple and white. A little bit of a. So you went purple with the Gatorade. I'm going purple with the tie with a little bit of white in there.
We'll definitely remember our picks a week from now.
Yeah, right. No kidding.
We'll remember the ones that matter, which is the Super Bowl MVP or the Puppy Bowl MVP and what's coming up here. So.
Yep. Well, we might as well do it, shall we? Who do you got and why?
This is one.
Or do you want me to tell you where the vote is really quick?
Has it changed?
Yes.
I mean,
slight edge to the Eagles.
Okay. I am going to take the Chiefs. And here's my thinking. I look at both these defenses. And for me, it's about which defense can do just enough to put the opposing offense, maybe force a couple turnovers, maybe get a couple